She was 20, radiant, and poised to rival the biggest names of 1980s Hollywood until a single summer afternoon ended everything. Today we travel from a rainy Vancouver suburb to the glitter of the Playboy Mansion and the shadows that finally consumed Dorothy Stratten. Stay with me. Her story is not just true crime, it's a mirror held up to fame, power, and the price of ignoring the red flags. Roots in rain-soaked Vancouver, 1960 to 1977. Dorothy Ruth Hoog Stratten entered the world on February 28, 1960, in the bustling yet often gray city of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, as the first child of Dutch immigrants who had crossed the ocean in the late 1950s in pursuit of a brighter future away from post-war Europe's lingering hardships. Her father Simon and mother Nellie threw themselves into building a new life, but the transition proved far more grueling than anticipated, with Simon juggling a string of low-paying, physically demanding odd jobs, from construction work to factory labor, just to keep the family afloat facing rising costs and unfamiliar cultural barriers. Nellie, meanwhile, devoted her energy to maintaining the home front, cooking simple meals from whatever ingredients were affordable, mending clothes that had seen better days, and nurturing the children through the emotional turbulence of displacement. However, the strains of adaptation and financial woes eroded their relationship at an alarming pace, culminating in a painful divorce by the time Dorothy turned 3, leaving Nellie to shoulder the full burden of parenthood alone. This shift thrust her into the role of sole provider and caregiver for Dorothy. Her brother John Arthur, who was born in 1961, and quickly became a lively companion in their shared adventures, and later their sister Louise, who joined the family in May 1968, adding a new layer of responsibility to an already stretched household. They settled into a modest, cramped home in Coquitlam, a blue-collar suburb on the outskirts of Vancouver, where rows of simple houses lined streets that turned slick and muddy during the region's endless rainy winters, heightening the family's feelings of seclusion and the relentless pressure of making ends meet. Daily life revolved around survival tactics. Meals might consist of basic staples like potatoes, bread, and canned goods when money was tight, prepared hastily after Nellie's long shifts at whatever job she could secure, often in cleaning or retail. The atmosphere inside the home fluctuated unpredictably, influenced by Nellie's succession of boyfriends, who came and went, some bringing fleeting moments of stability with small gifts or outings, but others introducing tension through arguments, unreliability, or even subtle threats that made the children wary and hyper-vigilant. Dorothy, as the oldest, often found herself navigating these choppy waters, learning early on to read the room and diffuse potential conflicts to protect the fragile peace. Even as a young girl, Dorothy displayed a profoundly shy and introspective nature, her cheeks flushing crimson at the slightest praise or attention, which made her retreat into quieter pursuits rather than seeking out crowds or boisterous play. She found profound comfort in the world of animals, spending endless afternoons tending to stray cats that wandered into their yard, feeding them scraps from the kitchen, and fashioning makeshift beds from old blankets, all while dreaming vividly of a career as a veterinarian where she could mend broken wings, soothe ailments, and offer the kind of unwavering care that eluded her own family at times. This passion stemmed from a deep well of kindness and empathy that shone through in her every action. Whether it was sharing her scarce toys with neighbors' children or listening patiently to her siblings' fears late into the night. In her protective capacity as the eldest, she became a quiet guardian, stepping in to console John during his tantrums or cradling baby Louise through sleepless nights, absorbing the chaos of their unstable environment to shield them from its harshest edges. Her childhood, though shadowed by poverty, marked by hand-me-down clothes, infrequent treats, and the constant hum of worry about bills, fostered a remarkable resilience. She clung to a gentle optimism, deriving joy from simple pleasures, like watching birds at the feeder, assisting elderly neighbors with errands, or losing herself in books about far-off places and heroic acts of compassion. As she transitioned into her teenage years, the practical demands of life began to eclipse those veterinary aspirations, pulling her focus toward immediate contributions to the family's welfare. At Centennial High School in Coquitlam, where the hallways echoed with the chatter of adolescents navigating the awkwardness of growing up, Dorothy stood out for her sweet demeanor, unwavering kindness, and easy approachability that drew people to her without effort. She gravitated toward a close-knit circle of friends who shared her down-to-earth sensibilities, enjoying low-key gatherings where music played softly, laughter flowed freely over snacks, and conversations touched on school dramas or future hopes, all while steering clear of the wilder excesses that tempted some peers. To help ease the financial strain at home, she took on a part-time job at the local Dairy Queen, a bustling spot filled with the sizzle of grills and the sweet aroma of waffle cones, where she spent hours flipping burgers with precision, scooping generous portions of ice cream into cups, and greeting customers with a genuine smile that turned routine transactions into warm exchanges. This work not only provided crucial extra income for essentials like school supplies or groceries, but also sharpened her social abilities as she encountered a wide spectrum of individuals, from harried parents with kids in tow to elderly regulars seeking a familiar face, in the vibrant, ever-changing suburb of Vancouver. Against the broader canvas of the 1970s, an era pulsating with transformative cultural currents, such as the sexual revolution that championed personal liberation and self-expression, alongside the burgeoning influence of glossy publications like Playboy that glamorized beauty as a pathway to empowerment and success, Dorothy's daily existence remained rooted in humility and hard work, far from the spotlight of such trends. Yet these societal shifts were quietly permeating the lives of young women from similar backgrounds, whispering promises of glamour, financial independence, and escape from the constraints of immigrant struggles and suburban monotony. Little did she know, this confluence of beauty ideals and opportunistic allure would soon catapult her from the familiar rain-soaked pavements of her hometown into a glittering yet perilous realm, where the dazzle of fame intertwined inextricably with hidden risks and profound vulnerabilities. Discovered and targeted, Snider and Playboy, 1977 to 1979. Dorothy's life underwent a profound and unexpected transformation sometime in 1977 or the early months of 1978, when she crossed paths with Paul Snider while serving customers at the Dairy Queen counter in her familiar suburban routine. Snider, who was 26 years old at the time, operated on the fringes of Vancouver's vibrant yet shadowy nightclub circuit, where he cultivated a reputation as a smooth-talking hustler with a penchant for flashy sports cars, sharp suits, and ambitious schemes that frequently danced along the boundaries of what was legal or ethical. Whispers among locals even labeled him as a small-time pimp who preyed on vulnerable individuals to advance his own interests, always scanning for the next big score. From the moment he laid eyes on Dorothy, he was utterly entranced by her natural, unspoiled allure, her cascading long blonde hair that caught the light just so, her wide, innocent blue eyes that sparkled with genuine warmth, and her modest charm that exuded an effortless grace far removed from the calculated glamour of his world, viewing her not just as a person but as a golden ticket to the fame and wealth he so desperately craved. Their initial encounters unfolded in a seemingly harmless manner, with Snider wooing her through dates that opened doors to a more sophisticated lifestyle, such as dinners at upscale restaurants or drives along the scenic coastal roads, exposing her to luxuries that stood in sharp contrast to the thriftiness of her family's daily existence. However, Snider's underlying opportunism revealed itself swiftly and decisively as he began steering the relationship toward his own agendas, convincing Dorothy to pose for professional nude photographs that he framed as an essential first step toward unlocking doors in the entertainment industry and achieving the kind of success that could lift her out of obscurity. Given that she had just turned 18 and was still considered underage under British Columbia's laws for consenting to such modeling contracts without parental involvement, Snider maneuvered the situation carefully, ensuring that her mother, Nellie, provided the required signature on the release forms, thereby granting legal permission for the sessions to proceed. These carefully staged images, capturing Dorothy's youthful vitality and natural poise, were promptly submitted to Playboy magazine as part of their highly publicized 25th anniversary Playmate Hunt, a nationwide competition designed to unearth fresh faces and inject new energy into the publication's expanding empire, which by then had become a cultural phenomenon symbolizing both liberation and objectification in the late 1970s landscape. By the warm days of summer in 1978, Dorothy's submission had propelled her into the spotlight as one of the selected finalists, igniting a surge of excitement within her that prompted an immediate relocation to the sun-drenched sprawl of Los Angeles, where she arrived with a mix of wide-eyed anticipation and a budding sense of adventure that masked her underlying uncertainties about leaving behind the only home she had ever known. This bold move immersed her in a dizzying array of novel experiences, from the opulent grounds of the legendary Playboy Mansion, teeming with extravagant parties where champagne flowed endlessly, Hollywood celebrities mingled casually, and an air of unrestrained hedonism permeated every corner, to the fast-paced rhythm of auditions and photo shoots that bore little resemblance to the quiet predictability of her Coquitlam days. Her inherent naivety shone through in how she approached this glittering new realm, absorbing its wonders with childlike awe while struggling to comprehend the intricate power dynamics, hidden agendas, and predatory undercurrents that lurked beneath the surface of the modeling and entertainment scene. Snider, unwilling to relinquish his grip on what he saw as his discovery, trailed after her to Los Angeles by October of that same year, establishing himself as an omnipresent figure in her life whose initial supportiveness gradually morphed into a suffocating possessiveness that raised eyebrows among those who observed their interactions. The pinnacle of this ascent came in August 1979, when Dorothy was officially crowned Playboy's Playmate of the Month, her featured pictorial in the magazine masterfully crafting an image of wholesome, approachable allure, the quintessential girl next door whose radiant smile and relatable backstory captivated readers and aligned perfectly with Playboy's strategy of blending sensuality with everyday accessibility. This prestigious title served as a launchpad for further ventures, including a stint as a bunny at the upscale Century City Playboy Club, where she slipped into the signature costume, complete with fluffy ears and a cottontail, gliding through the dimly lit venue to deliver cocktails and engage patrons with her innate poise and friendly demeanor that made each interaction feel personal and inviting. Yet amid these triumphs, clouds gathered as friends, colleagues, and even Playboy insiders voiced growing concerns about Snider's increasingly erratic conduct. His jealousy flared openly at the attention Dorothy received. His temper erupted in heated arguments, and reports surfaced of him pursuing flirtations with other women, behaviors that ultimately led to his expulsion from the mansion's exclusive events. Despite these glaring warning signs that painted Snider as a controlling force capable of undermining her progress, Dorothy, at the tender age of 19, chose to bind herself to him in marriage during a spontaneous ceremony in Las Vegas in June 1979, a decision likely rooted in a combination of youthful idealism, lingering loyalty to the man who had first propelled her forward, and perhaps subtle pressures from his persistent manipulations. This union underscored her profoundly trusting disposition, as she prioritized preserving a semblance of stability and harmony over heeding the red flags that others saw so clearly. Even as Snider's dominance started to erode her connections within the industry and isolate her from mentors who could have guided her toward greater independence and security in her emerging career path. Breakthrough roles, breaking point, 1979 to early 1980. As 1979 unfolded with increasing velocity, Dorothy's professional trajectory began to accelerate in ways that seemed almost surreal against the backdrop of her earlier humble beginnings. Driven by the enthusiastic backing of Playboy's iconic founder, Hugh Hefner, who harbored grand visions of molding her into a multifaceted star, capable of bridging the worlds of modeling and acting with her unique blend of innocence and charisma. This optimism translated into a series of initial film roles that, while modest in scope, served as crucial stepping stones in honing her on-screen presence and building her confidence in an industry notorious for its unforgiving nature. She made her cinematic debut with an uncredited appearance as a lively dancer in the satirical comedy America Thon, a film that poked fun at America's economic woes through exaggerated scenarios, where Dorothy's brief moments on screen captured her natural rhythm and joy in movement, even if they went unnoticed by most audiences. Following closely was a small but memorable part as a cheerful customer at a bustling snack bar in the roller disco-themed Skate Town, USA, a movie that encapsulated the era's obsession with skating culture and funky soundtracks, allowing her to infuse the scene with her warm smile and approachable energy that made her character feel authentically relatable amid the film's flashy antics. Her breakthrough came with her first leading role as Tara in the low-budget Canadian drama Autumn Born, a story exploring themes of personal growth and resilience, where Dorothy delved into a more substantial portrayal of a young woman navigating life's complexities, drawing from her own experiences of overcoming adversity to deliver a performance marked by subtle emotional depth and vulnerability. These early film endeavors soon spilled over into the realm of television, broadening her exposure and introducing her to a wider viewership eager for fresh faces in popular shows. She landed a guest spot as the ethereal Miss Cosmos in an episode of the futuristic adventure series Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, where her portrayal of a beauty pageant contestant from outer space blended humor with a touch of otherworldly grace, her blue eyes and blonde locks perfectly suiting the character's glamorous yet comedic essence. Not long after, she appeared as an enchanting mermaid in an installment of the anthology series Fantasy Island, a role that required her to embody mystery and allure in a fantastical setting, swimming through scripted waters of dreams and desires while maintaining the wholesome charm that had become her signature. Throughout these productions, Dorothy's off-camera personality shone just as brightly. Her inherent sweetness and kindness manifested in thoughtful gestures that endeared her to cast and crew alike, such as baking batches of homemade cookies or muffins to share during long shooting days, or pausing amid the hustle of rehearsals to lend a sympathetic ear to a co-star's tales of homesickness or career frustrations, thereby creating pockets of genuine camaraderie in an environment often dominated by competition and ego. By the dawn of 1980, Dorothy's ascent reached a dazzling peak on April 30th when she was bestowed the coveted title of Playmate of the Year during a lavish ceremony at the Playboy Mansion, an event that glittered with celebrity attendees, flowing libations, and the electric buzz of achievement, marking her as the epitome of the magazine's ideal in a year filled with fierce competition. The accolade was accompanied by generous rewards that underscored her newfound status, a total prize package worth $200,000 in cash and gifts, including a sleek Jaguar automobile that symbolized luxury and mobility in the sun-soaked streets of Los Angeles. In her heartfelt acceptance speech, delivered with a poise that belied her youth, she extended thanks to a multitude of supporters, including Hefner, her family, and industry mentors, yet pointedly left out any mention of Snider, a quiet omission that hinted at the widening chasm between them, as if her words were a subconscious declaration of reclaiming her narrative from his overshadowing influence. This era also featured her in the starring role as the android protagonist in the science fiction comedy Galaxina, a quirky tale of space exploration and robotic romance that demanded she balance deadpan humor with mechanical precision, all while contending with Snider's overbearing interference that invaded the set like an unwelcome storm. His daily presence turned rehearsals into battlegrounds where he nitpicked her line deliveries with harsh critiques, questioned the appropriateness of her costumes in jealous rants, and monitored her every exchange with colleagues, draining the joy from what should have been a liberating creative outlet and replacing it with layers of anxiety that Dorothy masked behind her composed exterior. One especially fraught episode on the Galaxina production exemplified the escalating toxicity, as Snider's possessiveness boiled over during a routine break when he observed her engaging in innocuous banter with lighting technicians and sound engineers, interpreting these harmless interactions as flirtations that threatened his control, resulting in explosive accusations of betrayal hurled in front of onlookers, and forcing Dorothy to employ her innate diplomatic skills to calm the situation, her voice steady despite the inner turmoil. The underlying fractures in their marriage intensified as Snider's domineering behaviors increasingly collided with Dorothy's budding sense of autonomy, which she cultivated through her professional successes and the supportive networks she was beginning to form. He methodically worked to seclude her from these circles, planting seeds of insecurity about her abilities and worth, yet Dorothy's resilient spirit flickered in quiet rebellions, like opening up to trusted confidants about the unease gnawing at her, sharing whispered concerns over coffee or late-night calls that revealed her gradual awakening to the relationship's imbalance. Even during high-profile photo shoots, where the camera's gaze demanded perfection, she found herself dialing Snider out of a conditioned apprehension, these compulsory check-ins serving as stark reminders of the manipulative hold he maintained, though they also sparked moments of introspection where she questioned the sustainability of such patterns. On a deeper emotional level, Dorothy wrestled with the double-edged sword of celebrity, articulating in interviews her belief that physical attractiveness is fleeting and superficial, incapable of capturing the essence of a person's character or soul, and voicing a sincere desire to preserve her humility and avoid the vanity that ensnared so many in Hollywood's orbit. She took particular satisfaction in upholding her principles by steadfastly refusing to engage in the infamous casting couch practices that plagued the industry, a stance that preserved her dignity amid relentless temptations and pressures to compromise for advancement. A lesser-known story from the Galaxina set further illuminated her unwavering groundedness amidst the chaos. She formed an instant rapport with a novice makeup artist hailing from a similar immigrant family, swapping stories of cultural adjustments and childhoods marked by relocation. Dorothy recounting vivid memories of her Dutch parents' arrival in Canada and the simple traditions they clung to, culminating in her surprising the entire team with a platter of authentic stroop waffles she had prepared from a cherished family recipe, their caramel-filled wafers evoking a sense of warmth and normalcy in the midst of Hollywood's artificial glow, a gesture that not only bridged personal histories, but also reinforced her commitment to authenticity in a world built on illusions. New Love, New Courage, Spring Summer 80, March 1980 marked a crucial turning point in Dorothy's journey as she journeyed to the bustling streets of New York City to take part in the filming of They All Laughed, a light-hearted romantic comedy helmed by the acclaimed director Peter Bogdanovich, whose keen eye for storytelling and character depth had already established him as a force in Hollywood. In this project, she was cast in the supporting role of Dolores Martin, a character that allowed her to share the screen with legendary figures such as the elegant Audrey Hepburn and the affable John Ritter. Representing her inaugural foray into a major studio production with a substantial budget that promised to elevate her visibility and test her abilities in delivering nuanced comedic timing alongside authentic emotional resonance. The city's pulsating atmosphere with its towering skyscrapers, endless crowds, and creative fervor not only invigorated her professionally, but also introduced her to Bogdanovich in a capacity that transcended mere collaboration. He became both a guiding mentor who nurtured her talents through patient direction and insightful feedback, and eventually a romantic interest whose connection offered her a profound sense of validation and tenderness. Their relationship blossomed quietly amid the rigors of the shoot, unfolding in stolen moments away from the cameras, providing Dorothy with a much-needed sanctuary from the oppressive weight of Snider's dominance that had long overshadowed her personal life. To preserve this fragile space and prevent disruptions, she devised excuses about the set being strictly closed to outsiders, effectively barring Snider from intruding and enabling her to immerse herself fully in the creative process while exploring the depths of this new affection. After wrapping up principal photography in New York, Dorothy made a swift return to Los Angeles to attend the glamorous announcement of her Playmate of the Year honor, a brief interlude that reinforced her determination to forge a path independent of Snider's influence, leading her to firmly decline sharing living quarters with him upon her arrival. By May of that year, during a restorative visit to her family roots in Vancouver, where she sought solace in familiar surroundings and the comfort of loved ones, Snider unexpectedly materialized, inserting himself into her schedule by booking her for performances at local nightclubs under the guise of advancing her career, only to pocket every cent of the proceeds, a move that ignited fierce disputes and laid bare his exploitative tendencies. In the heat of these confrontations, Dorothy, desperate to mend what remained of their bond, even suggested abandoning her acting ambitions entirely if it meant restoring peace to the marriage. But Snider, entrenched in his obsession with the prestige and material benefits her fame brought him, dismissed the proposal outright, unwilling to relinquish the vicarious success he derived from her spotlight. This impasse culminated in late June when she took the decisive step of sending him a formal letter outlining their separation, asserting her intent to achieve not only physical distance but also complete financial autonomy, a declaration that severed the ties he had so tightly woven around her life. Snider's reaction veered into chaos and vindictiveness. He swiftly emptied their shared bank accounts to seize control of funds, enlisted a private investigator to shadow her every move and document her interactions with Bogdanovich in hopes of gathering leverage, and liquidated her cherished Playmate of the Year awards at steep discounts for quick liquidity, including the prized Jaguar that had once symbolized her triumphs, actions driven by his mounting desperation as a Canadian citizen lacking a green card, which left him precariously dependent on Dorothy for any semblance of legal and economic footing in the United States. With the completion of They All Laughed's filming by mid-July, Dorothy embarked on a brief, rejuvenating escape to London alongside Bogdanovich, a trip filled with cultural explorations and intimate conversations that further cemented their partnership. Returning to Los Angeles on July 30th, she promptly relocated to Bogdanovich's expansive Bel Air mansion, embracing a fresh chapter defined by security and mutual respect. Meanwhile, Snider's descent accelerated alarmingly. On July 31st, he was spotted skulking near the property's perimeter, armed with a firearm he had acquired from a friend, his mind teetering on the brink of irreversible harm before he withdrew without incident. In conversations with those around him, he uttered chilling comments referencing the tragic fates of other former playmates, like one who had met her end in a devastating automobile crash, remarks that hinted at the ominous shadows gathering in his psyche. Through it all, Dorothy's inner conflict surfaced in her personal journals, where she poured out yearnings for liberation intertwined with a poignant dread of inflicting suffering on others, her words painting a portrait of a woman delicately balancing the raw edges of passion, disloyalty, and the quest for self-realization, her vulnerability revealing the profound human cost of such tumultuous transitions. August 14th, the murder-suicide. The culmination of the escalating tensions that had been building relentlessly over months finally erupted in the sweltering heat of August 1980, bringing a violent and irreversible close to Dorothy's efforts to break free from the shadows of her past. On August 14th, driven by a lingering hope for a peaceful parting, despite the chorus of warnings from concerned friends who urged her not to face Snider unaccompanied, given his increasingly unstable demeanor, Dorothy chose to meet him directly to discuss the terms of their impending divorce, clinging to the belief that she could manage the situation with her characteristic empathy and maintain at least a thread of amicable connection after all they had shared. She arrived prepared with $1,100 in cash as a preliminary settlement gesture, intending to pave the way for a clean separation that would allow her to fully embrace the new chapter unfolding with Bogdanovich and her burgeoning career. The encounter unfolded at the house they had once shared in West Los Angeles, a place now laden with memories of happier times that had long since soured into resentment and control, setting the stage for a descent into unimaginable horror. Snider, whose obsession had festered into something far more dangerous, had secretly acquired a 12-gauge shotgun on August 14th, a date that eerily coincided with the second anniversary of Dorothy's initial move to Los Angeles, the very milestone that had launched her into the spotlight he so coveted. In a sequence of events that unfolded with brutal swiftness, he overpowered her, subjecting her to a degrading sexual assault that stripped away her dignity in her final moments, before firing the weapon directly into her face, ending her life in an act of possessive rage. Not content with this destruction, he then manipulated her lifeless form into a macabre pose, as if staging a twisted tableau, and subsequently directed the shotgun toward himself, completing the gruesome double act with his own suicide. The bodies, both nude and marred by the violence, were stumbled upon that same evening by Snider's unsuspecting roommates, who initially mistook the scene for some elaborate prank involving realistic mannequins splattered with artificial blood, only to recoil in shock upon realizing the nightmarish reality. At just 20 years old, Dorothy's vibrant existence was abruptly extinguished, her potential as an actress and her gentle spirit lost forever in that blood-soaked room. The subsequent police inquiry pieced together the timeline, determining that the fatal shooting of Dorothy had occurred mere moments after her entry into the home, with Snider lingering in his torment for approximately an hour before joining her in death, a delay that spoke volumes about the depth of his internal conflict and malice. This appalling conclusion served as a stark illustration of how unchecked jealousy, domineering impulses, and festering psychological distress could converge into catastrophe, transforming what began as opportunity into a deadly trap. In the aftermath, Dorothy's body was cremated following a somber service, her ashes laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in the heart of Los Angeles, beneath a headstone inscribed with poignant words drawn from a beloved novel, lamenting how the world so often crushes those rare souls who dare to approach it with open-hearted bravery and illuminating goodness. Beyond the personal tragedy, her death cast a harsh light on the precarious underbelly of sudden stardom, revealing the perils that lurk within exploitative partnerships and the entertainment industry's glittering facade, where vulnerability can swiftly turn fatal without safeguards or intervention. The woman behind the headlines. Beyond the stark outline of her life's chronology, Dorothy's narrative peels back intricate dimensions of her personality and the nuanced contours of her internal landscape that defined her far beyond the headlines. Back in her high school years at Centennial, she embodied the essence of quiet helpfulness, often lingering after classes, to guide struggling classmates through tricky math equations or literature assignments. Her explanations delivered with a soft, reassuring tone that not only clarified concepts but also boosted their self-belief, turning potential failures into moments of triumph. This same warmth infused her time behind the counter at Dairy Queen, where her melodic laughter cut through the drudgery of repetitive tasks like assembling sundaes or mopping floors, lightening the mood for coworkers during slow hours, and she made it a personal ritual to heap on additional sprinkles or chocolate drizzles for young customers, those unassuming kindnesses mirroring a deeply ingrained nurturing quality that sought to make the world a tad sweeter for others. Remarkably, even as she navigated the intoxicating allure of Los Angeles with its red carpets and flashing cameras, Dorothy stayed firmly anchored to her origins, dialing her family's number several times a week to check on her mother's well-being amid ongoing hardships, inquire about her brother John's latest adventures or school challenges, and offer words of comfort to her sister Louise, ensuring that the bonds of her modest upbringing remained unbreakable threads in her evolving story. She once reflected on her childhood as one that perpetually felt not quite right, shadowed by the unpredictability of meals that ranged from meager portions of soup when budgets stretched thin to rare feasts on paydays, compounded by her mother's succession of short-lived romances that introduced fleeting figures into their home, prompting Dorothy to step up as the steadfast guardian sibling, deftly diverting attention from conflicts or providing hugs and stories to insulate her brother and sister from the emotional whirlwinds that threatened their sense of security. The intricacies of her marriage to Snider unfolded like a convoluted maze of psychological coercion, where he methodically undermined her self-esteem through belittling remarks about her talents and decisions, while systematically cutting her off from friends and mentors who might have offered alternative perspectives. Yet Dorothy's unyielding resilience flickered to life in subtle acts of resistance that signaled her inner strength. Though she felt compelled to phone him repeatedly during film shoots or modeling sessions, a habit rooted in the dread of his explosive reactions, she simultaneously began opening up to a handful of reliable confidants, whispering her growing disquiet and fears in private conversations that served as lifelines amid the isolation. By stark contrast, her connection with Bogdanovich bloomed from a place of authentic gentleness, woven with evenings spent exchanging aspirations about creative projects and heartfelt letters that overflowed with expressions of profound care and mutual understanding, fostering a relationship that felt like a balm to her wounded spirit. Dorothy frequently contemplated the deceptive veneer of stardom, observing how external beauty is transient and superficial, failing to reflect the true core of an individual's spirit or values, and she lamented how those ensnared by vanity tend to chase hollow appearances over substantive depths. Influenced by her European background, she held a forthright yet romantic view of physicality and closeness, regarding intimacy as an exquisite exchange to be cherished within the bounds of genuine love rather than diluted through fleeting encounters. And she remained resolute in her dedication to exclusive partnerships as the foundation of trust. With a sense of quiet accomplishment, she proclaimed that she had navigated the cutthroat entertainment sphere without ever bending her morals, gracefully deflecting inappropriate propositions from producers or colleagues without succumbing to pressure or resentment, preserving her integrity as a shield. At her core, Dorothy's emotional battles delved into profound territories. Excerpts from her journals and notes unveiled a woman trapped in a cycle of confinement, articulating an intense craving for autonomy that warred with a compassionate terror of the heartache her departure might cause those entangled in her life. She harbored genuine worries about the exploitation of her photographs and on-screen appearances, leading her to painstakingly review stacks of fan letters, setting aside or destroying anything risque that could spark Snider's ire and exacerbate their volatility. Collectively, these revelations frame Dorothy not simply as an emblem of aesthetic perfection, but as a deeply human figure contending with the tangled webs of affection and deceit, the suffocating clutch of apprehension, and the tenacious glow of aspiration, personifying the bittersweet ironies of existence, the concealed agonies that coexisted with widespread acclaim, the resilient grace amid turmoil, and the poignant delicacy of our shared vulnerabilities that make every story resonate with universal truth, fallout, cultural reckoning, and legacy. Dorothy's narrative remains entangled in a web of controversies that cast long shadows over her enduring legacy, inviting ongoing scrutiny and debate among those who examine her life and tragic end. Allegations emerged suggesting that the founder of Playboy had sexually assaulted her during her initial visit to the mansion in 1978, though the claim remains disputed and was denied by Hefner. In retaliation, counterclaims directed blame toward Bogdanovich, including critics who claimed he seduced her much younger sister Louise when she was still in her early teens, though Bogdanovich maintained that their romantic relationship began only after she turned 18. Reports also highlighted how repeated alerts about Snider's menacing behavior and potential for violence were dismissed by influential individuals in Dorothy's circle, who allegedly prioritized their own social engagements and pleasures, even continuing lavish outings on the very evening of the murder, which has sparked pointed questions about degrees of indirect complicity and negligence in failing to intervene when danger loomed so evidently. These elements fuel heated debates regarding the extent to which Playboy's overarching culture played a role in fostering the conditions for such a tragedy, by romanticizing female vulnerability as an asset while inadvertently or deliberately creating spaces where predatory instincts could thrive unchecked, versus the argument that responsibility lies exclusively with Snider's personal demons and uncontrolled fury. The founder's self-image as a benevolent fatherly mentor to young women like Dorothy stands in sharp opposition to criticisms that label his empire as exploitative, profiting from the commodification of bodies under the guise of liberation. Meanwhile, Bogdanovich's decision to marry Dorothy's sister Louise in 1988, following years of supporting her through college education and modeling training, ignited further controversy, with some viewing it as evidence of a disturbing fixation or grooming pattern that blurred familial and romantic boundaries. Although their union ended in divorce by 2001, after which they preserved a cordial connection. Such divergent viewpoints compelled deeper contemplation. Did Dorothy fall victim primarily to the obsessive clutches of a single manipulative individual, or was she ensnared by a larger systemic framework within the entertainment world that objectified and endangered women, heightening the perils associated with pursuing dreams in a realm rife with power, imbalances, and unchecked ambitions? The aftermath of Dorothy's untimely death rippled profoundly through cultural, social, and even political spheres, leaving an indelible mark that continues to influence discussions today. Her story inspired several film adaptations that sought to capture its heartbreaking essence, such as a 1981 television movie where a then-emerging actress portrayed Dorothy with poignant sensitivity, delving into the emotional layers of her rise and fall, and a 1983 feature film that boasted compelling performances, particularly in depicting Snider's descent into madness and the surrounding glamour's dark underbelly. Bogdanovich, in a gesture of profound dedication, poured millions of his own funds into acquiring and distributing They All Laughed, the film that represented Dorothy's most promising work as a tribute to her talent and memory, a move that ultimately depleted his personal wealth and underscored the personal toll of honoring her legacy. Musically, tributes poured forth in various forms, including a touching ballad that lamented the best was yet to come, as a nod to her unfulfilled potential, an energetic rock song called Cover Girl that celebrated her iconic image while mourning her loss, and allusions in other tracks, like one exploring the transient nature of celebrity and another lambasting the hedonistic excesses of Hollywood that can devour the innocent. On a broader cultural level, Dorothy's fate peeled back the facade of Playboy's seductive empire, exposing its perilous allure and sparking vital conversations about the safeguards needed for women's protection within the modeling and acting professions, where exploitation often masquerades as opportunity. Socially, it brought to light recurring cycles of domestic violence, marked by patterns of domination, social seclusion, and eventual lethal escalation that persist in relationships worldwide, advocating for heightened vigilance, education, and proactive support systems to aid victims before tragedies unfold. Politically, her story served as a critique of the sexual revolution's unintended consequences, demonstrating how the era's emphasis on liberation and individual pursuit could intersect disastrously with jealous possessiveness, turning personal aspirations into fatal conflicts. The enduring lessons from her experience stress the importance of listening to cautionary signals, identifying warning signs in toxic dynamics, and extending compassionate assistance to those trapped in abusive situations. Ultimately, Dorothy has come to represent the quintessential immigrant's aspiration, twisted into a harrowing cautionary tale, a poignant reminder of fame's fleeting illusion and the imperative to shield emerging talents from the industry's predatory elements, ensuring that vulnerability is met with empathy rather than exploitation. 4.5 decades later, Dorothy's brief life still whispers a warning. Talent and tenderness are no match for unchecked obsession, unless we, the witnesses, step in. If her light moved you, share this video, talk about the signs, and honor her by protecting the next young dreamer.